on that ship. They had enough to quadruple the size of Fort Max. They were able to fully assemble a brand new gold bug, and they were able to craft pretender shells. That is a very resourceful ship that Nebulons and the Transformers have.
I'm telling you, getting Optimus Prime back into a body is going to be no big thing. Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
I know what the first panel of the next issue is.
Is it Optimus Prime in a new body? Having been put in it off
I know
panel?
what next issue's previously on Transformers is going to be.
The LONGBOX Crusade presents Transformers Chronicles.
Hello and welcome back to Transformers Chronicles. I'm Delvin, aka the Dark Web, and in case you're new to the show, welcome. And let me tell you what this thing is all about. We're going on a wild, crazy ride, chronicling the awesome, wacky, and yep, sometimes corny world of Marvel Comics, the Transformers, but I will never be going at it alone. Let's meet my chronicling companions. First up is the founder of the LONGBOX Crusade, the relative novice to the Transformers world, the seeker of the matrix of knowledge. His name is Pat Sampson. Pat, how are you tonight?
Me, Pat, doing good. Me, Pat, like talking Transformers. Me, Pat, talker of Transformers.
Okay, I see.
I know cray-cray. What Pat say, no cray-cray.
It sounds somewhat cray-cray, and I'm going to have to add this to the Pat personality pile. It's
Patlock. I'm Patlock.
Oh, now it's Patlock. There was Pat before.
Yep.
There's no more Pat. Okay, like it's getting hard to keep up. You're matching my nickname number almost.
I'm trying to.
We keep this going. Patlock. Okay. All right. I promise everybody that we would have this one relatively quickly done, because we're all sleepy and old tonight. So we will move on. Not just you, John, and you, Maggie. We. I gave it was a royal we. It was not just a you two thing.
Patlock, no sleepy.
Except Patlock. Patlock is not sleepy. But we will now move on to the lesser half of Mary watching cartoons and any MWC related content. Instead of our Transformers expert, he would like to now be known as the Transformers librarian, because he is also a librarian in real life, in addition to the Transformer knowledge that he lays every episode. His name is Jonathan Schaefer-Hames. John, welcome to the show.
Hello, Delvin. Many people that know me would assume that I would be swapping out the Transformers expert for librarian, in a desire to not come across as pretentious. But this is, in fact, not true. A librarian is an upgrade from an expert, because librarians know everything. So you guys are in for all kinds of nonsense from this point out. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but this was, growing up, my favorite issue of the entire series. Ooh. So, very exciting to see. Will I still think that? Do I not? Is it somewhere in the middle? Mm-hmm. All of these questions will be answered later, presumably.
Will be answered later, but before I switch to the greater half of Mary watching cartoons, and I've got to come up with more MWC stuff just for the humor purposes of it, but not this time. We're kind of in a hurry. But John, you have to let us know something about the library, or something that a librarian could impart upon us, the listening audience, that we might not know otherwise.
Here's something you might not know. You can get way more than just books at a library, not even like DVDs or CDs or any of those things. I'm talking on this Yeti microphone that I checked out from the library. And, we also have things like, you can get a Nintendo Switch and like any of the new games. We got things like, they've got like Frisbee golf sets, puzzles, all sorts of stuff. So if you haven't been to one in a while, like wander by and see what they have there.
That's me. I'm people. I have not been to one, to a public library at all.
It's been a while too.
In the last several years. And it's something I used to love going to as a kid. Mom used to take me to the library all the time. I read so many books. Need to get back into that for sure. Yeah. John, thank you for that tip.
Padlock agrees. Padlock like married with card catalog group.
Right. Hey,
there we go. Married with card catalog. I love it.
That's pretty good, Padlock.
That's not half bad.
I was about to, comment on how we might have to vote you not leader anymore, but now I'm leader.
Yeah, good, Jonathan. Good.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to the greater half of Married Watching Cartoons, Married Watching Card Catalog. Her name is Maggie Schaefer-Hames. And Maggie, you can talk about whatever you want, but I know that we have talked recently about your dressage. So if you would like to fill us in on that, please, now's the time.
It's been going good. It's going to be a wonderful summer where I get to just spend a lot of time with horses and be outside a whole bunch. I've had a great start to the summer so far, getting a lot of horsey time in. I even got to ride during a thunderstorm the other day, which was cool. It was inside. I didn't get wet, but it was still a little scary being on the back of a 1,200-pound animal. There's thunder. Luckily, he lives outside, so he didn't care. But yeah, it's been great. I've been making some good progress. I've been having a really good time with it, and it's good for the mind, body, and soul.
Wow, that's a good ending. And while it's on my head, Pat Lock, Pat Tita, one of the three, you're going to have to come up with something that I can ask you on a routine basis if you want me to do so. Like I want you to feel the Transformers Chronicles love.
Oh, I do, Delvin. I do. And so does Pat Lock. So we'll come up with something.
The purpose of this podcast will be tackling all of Marvel's Transformers comics in order, starting with issue 1 and working our way to the series end at issue 80. We'll answer any questions that are brought up to the best of our ability and see how these books that we loved then as a kid hold up to our eyes as an adult now. This podcast is guaranteed to be, you guessed it, more than meets the eye. So Pat, John, Maggie, let's see what happens when all the ish hits all of the fan. Right after this promo break.
Wrong.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
We got it all together for a brand new show. The LBC crew is here and so away we go. While the LBC crew is running from a spooky ghost, Christatos is doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved. Hang around with the LBC crew. Oh, hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved. Hang around with the LBC crew. That's the podcast. LBC crew.
We now return to the Transformers.
Welcome back. The issue we'll be covering today is Transformers issue 41, and here is John with his ready-made cover description.
I'm going to tell a quick story about it. Looking at this cover again unlocks this memory completely because my family was visiting Lake City, Minnesota, and my grandma and grandpa, my dad's parents. We were there for several days, and they had incredibly little to do for anybody of our age and didn't have cable, and so we were incredibly bored and sitting around. So they finally gave us like $10 and like sent us downtown. And I walked into a drugstore and just turned right to my right, and there's a spinner rack of comics, and staring me in the face is this thing. And I just immediately grabbed it, walked up and bought it and had them put it in a bag with a receipt. And then went on shopping because I just wanted to make sure that there was no chance that anyone else was going to grab this thing. This has a whole bunch of robots on it. The standards of it, you've got Fortress Max, the Transformers, and More Than Meets the Eye. Both the background of Fortress Max and the Transformers logo itself is in a really, really slick orange, and then there's a red trim on it. It's very striking and very much offsets the color scheme of the stuff we see below. And what we see below is basically a whole bunch of Decepticons coming from the left, smacking into a whole bunch of Autobots coming from the right. I mean, just a few here. I can see Ramjet, there's Swoop, we got Ratbat over there, Laserbeak, Dirge, Thrust, Slipstream, Jetfire, Cosmos is flying above Fortress Maximus and Grimlock. And there's a couple of the new Pretender people we met who I've already forgot who they are. Goldbug is standing there. There's other Dinobots. I mean, there's a huge battle royal going down. My money is, of course, on Cosmos. I did not mention this is taking place on the moon. In front of, and you can see the Earth in the sky and an incredibly great, just green, kind of Milky Way comic book space sort of scene. And that's what we got going on here. I like this cover a wee bit. How about you guys?
Let's we not forget about Cosmos. He kills and he kills. That's what he does. We can ask Pat though. Pat, what do you think about this cover?
Well, like Jonathan, this really struck me as well too. Caught my eye when I opened it and saw the cover. I was like, wow, there's a lot of Autobots on here. I think, and I wanted to go back on the, flip it over. Is like, is this a dual page one? But unfortunately, it's not. So I was kind of like, oh man, a little disappointed in it, but still, just the little artwork that's done. The nice thing is there's not a lot of too bad of color fading on it, where they would just color one guy full color or something. But what they color it makes sense to do for these Autobots and the Decepticons. So it really makes it pop, and just that starry Milky Way, as John mentioned, just that whole background is really nice. Just so much going on in here that you could sit and stare and try to name them all, but I can't.
I think you could probably name at least 5 or 10 if we had time, if we were not trying to get done quicker. I would ask. But in this case, I'm going to pass it to Maggie and ask her what she thinks about the cover.
Well, when John showed me the cover today, my initial reaction was to say, wow, that's a very cool cover. And it is. It's a very cool cover. And in fact, I only just realized that there are 2 flying Transformers up behind the Transformers logo. I didn't even see those 2 before. Yep. Or the little helicopter guy behind the R and the M. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of detail. It's all colored in. I mean, not a single misstep. It's a great cover. Yeah,
they went all out on this cover. I give Jose Delbo and Dave Hunt. I see JD and DH to the bottom left by the barcode. They went out on this one, and it's cool because if there were room, or if they wanted to put room, they could have put something like Showdown or something like that. Yeah. But do you really need to see that? No,
I think it tells itself.
Yeah. You see a lot of Autobots fighting a lot of Decepticons, and I think that's more than enough said. Like, the action spoke louder than the words ever possibly could. So I think it's a fantastic job too, but to see how fantastic, we rate things here at Transformers Chronicles on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, just like the tech specs back in the day. And we'll start with, since this is John's favorite book and he had a story behind it, going to grandma's and getting it, he gets the first crack at rating this thing, 1 to 10.
This is one easy 10 for me. I will tag on what both Pat and Maggie were saying about it, and really I'm going to make sure that I give credit to the colorist on this one. Not only are they pretty spot on, there's only actually I think 1 miscolor here, but it's the grouping of the coloration, which is great. You've got your reds up in one side, you've got more greens on the other, and then there's blues and everything. So it manages to not look like a mess. And and the green in the background actually manages to offset everything. So there's nothing going on in this that really distracts you from anything that's going on in this. I make this point right now because inside I have a lot of things to say about the colorist. So I want everyone to know that I will give credit where credit is due. But in this, my favorite issue, I have more complaints about the interiors than anything. But more on that later. This one's a 10.
Awesome. Maggie, what do you think?
It's a solid 10. Like I said, there's not a single misstep. I don't know enough to know what the miscoloring is, so I'm not gonna hold that against it at all.
That one.
Okay, sweet. Big orange car. It's a great cover. I love it. And it got me excited to read the issue. So yeah, easily a 10.
Pat?
I'll say a 10, but with some hesitancy. With that, I wanted it to be a front and back cover. Just screams it should be that. And so if I got to nitpick it, that's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. But it deserves it. Jose Delbo, we've been seeing that this guy can draw, and he can draw Transformers very well. So that's what I think is what keeps this at a 10, is his detail that was put into this.
I think I have to agree with the group here. Like, a part of me, and I'm closest to Pat. Like, I could give this a 9 and be okay with it, but it is a great cover. And what was attempted here was ambitious, and it was fun. It's one of those where if you know anything about the Transformers, you might want to look and say, man, how many Transformers can I name that were clearly drawn on this? Just a single one splash page, and you can, and there's clear and distinct, man, they even threw a Constructicon in there. They threw the Insecticons. They got Blaster. You got Hound. You got Tracks, for Pete's sake, on the cover. Like, just Blue Streak. Oh my God. See, I keep running and seeing different characters like that I haven't seen before. So it is an absolute who's who of a cover, and it's very fun. So that's cool. Now here's Pat with the credits for the issue.
Well, thank you, Delvin. We'll be covering Transformers issue number 41. Its on-sale date was February 23 of 1988. Its cover date was June 1988. Cover price is just $1. Story goes to Bob Budiansky. Pencils go to Jose Delbo. Inker is Danny Bulinati. Colors, Nelson Yamtov. Letters, Bill Oakley. Editor, Don Daly. And cover credits go to Jose Delbo. And this is all thanks to Mike's Amazing World and tfwiki.net. Back to you, Delvin.
Thank you, Pat. Let's get right to the synopsis. And sorry, Maggie, it has to be done in a world transformed where things are not what they seem. It is a world of the Transformers.
More than meets the eye.
Okay. The sad thing is, Delvin, is that every time we record, the way that we have it set up, I'm not on camera, which I'm perfectly comfortable with, but that means that you don't get to see the little dance that I do every time you do that.
I feel the happiness radiated. There's never been a time you're like, oh.
We have fun here. We have a good time here.
We have a great time. This is us laughing.
Me Grimlock laugh. Me Petlock laugh like ha ha ha.
Me, Grimlock, makes solid transformation to comic relief at 3/4 of the way through this, where he never leaves.
I think we should make Pat do the entire episode as Patlock.
Patlock. And then I'm like, me, Grimlock. I'm just a dinosaur. I do not know your lawfulness ways. Oh, wait, that's Matlock.
Frozen game.
That's Matlock.
It's Grimlock meets Matlock.
Grimlock, the lawyer, the country lawyer.
Oh, okay.
All right, y'all. I'll get us back on the track. The title of this issue was Totaled. What happened to Buster? What happened to Blaster? What happened to Daisy? She's the teddy bear, remember? Will we find out what happened to them in this issue? Yes. Okay, not Daisy, but I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't care what happened to the dang teddy bear, but yes, we get resolution. Let's start at the beginning. It was a lot. The Fort Max-led Autobot contingency tried to resurrect Optimus Prime, but didn't have the resources because they have been overextended with making the Pretender bot, resurrecting Goldberg and repairing Fortress Maximus about 27,328 times. That led them to seek out the Ark, which made sense because they are both in Earth outer space. Which Goldbug ain't too happy about because he left Grimlock's Autobot contingency because Grimlock Cray Cray. T-shirt available by searching LONGBOX CRUSADE on tpublic.com. But Fort Max does meet Grimlock, and things go south quickly due to Grimlock's insecurities about leadership and anger due to finding out about Goldbug's defection to Team Fort Max that leads to an agreement for Grimlock and Blaster serving as an avatar for Fort Max to fight to the death for the leadership of the Autobots. That is an incredible sentence to write. Go back and listen to that one again, folks. Guess who finds out about this whole thing? Well, Decepticons. You're seeing how all this comes together, right? All of the Ark Autobots and most of the Fort Max Autobots converge on a crater on the moon, of which Blaster and Grimlock begin their fight to the death. This fight causes them to be thrown far from the original group of combined Autobots, which is of course when the Decepticons ambush all of the Autobots. Lots happens here, but let's leave it at that. And when you know it, Blaster and Grimlock eventually realize a bigger battle is taking place, and the two of them combined are enough to propel the Decepticon advance into a retreat. With Buster Witwicky he's still a captive, by the way. But during the moments of the big battle when all look lost, Fortress Maximus orders Goldbug and the skeleton crew left aboard his ship to take off for the one place Fort Max knows has the technology to resurrect the one true leader of the Autobots, which is Optimus Prime, Nebulous.
Very nice, Delvin. That was a first-rate summary. I commend you.
Your best summary yet.
Thank you very much. Everybody, let's talk about the book on Transformers Chronicles. You know how we do it. Goods, bads, everything in between. Just a big old discussion. We're going to start with John. John, what do you want to talk about?
All right, I'm going to fold a good in with a bad, and that's just the artwork on this. First with the goods on this, Jose Delbo came to work in this issue. I mean, I think it was something like 160 separate characters he has to draw on here.
Wow.
Which he does distinctly and does not skimp on in any place that you could notice. He manages to throw in a lot of iconic ones, doing cool things. He throws in a ton that we haven't seen in months and months. We got Sunstreaker, for God's sake, we haven't seen since issue 10. We get Brawn in there just in time to get blown up by Swindle. Soundwave's taking out people. I mean, it's just a joy. It's all of your toys. It's amazing. Which brings me to the bad on this. And I know I harp on this a lot, but in this case, I think it really, really qualifies, and it's egregious to me. In this one, a lot of the shading things really, really get in the way of the storytelling. And I can understand. There were a lot of things of robots to have to color in on this. But on the other hand, Jose, as we said, did not skimp in any way, went above and beyond in all the things. And in an issue like this, where it's pretty much guaranteed, unless your favorite Autobot is Skylinks, that your favorite is in this one. But in a lot of cases, you wouldn't know because it's in the background coming off of the ship, and all you can see is Fortress Maximus and Goldbug, and then a bunch of gray robots. And in some of the cases, like the splash page, which would be an iconic poster-worthy fight where Omega Supreme is in the background shooting forward. You can see it's content page 20. It's the showdown between my man Cosmos and Razor Claw transforming at him. There is so much going on in here, and it's just wasted because the overwhelming majority of them are just colored gray-blue. And now, did that ruin this for me? Well, you wait till you see what I rated. But spoiler alert, not really. But it was a time that reading it this time especially, that I was just really disappointed on this. Now, I must also point out that I've been thinking about this all day, and because I was thinking about this all day, I looked up Nelyantov just to check and see, whether or not he was some sort of secret martial arts master who was known for vindictive action over people who would, sneak into libraries and things. And I found out that the man is also a writer known for children's books. And I checked, and our library doesn't have any of his children's books, or rather didn't until today. And now we're ordering 2 of them for him. So he gets royalties for that. So I actually, by my actions today, I'm providing him with money to make up karmically for this, because I do feel bad. I couldn't color these things in with crayons and stay within the lines on this. Basically, from now on, anytime it does that, I'll just say, see my rant on issue 42 or 41.
I do get what you're saying, in that it's possible that Nell just said, you know what, these aren't even the primary robots in this picture, so I'm just going to go ahead and take a little bit of a shortcut, gray them out, because they're not as important anyway. I do like your take on saying it's kind of something that we say here on the network a lot of times about everything is someone's favorite. That's what you're talking about here. Like there's some transformer in the background that someone may have just lit up if they gotten that extra color treatment. So I got what you're saying. Let's go to Pat. Pat, you can riff off of that or go off in any direction you please, sir.
I'll take a little bit of that action that's going on here. And this is some good hot bot on bot action that's going on here. There's a lot of fighting. I wasn't expecting. I was like, whoa. There's a lot of action between the Autobots and Decepticons that's happening. And the drawing, like John mentioned, is they're detailed. They're just not colored. But to me, I don't think it bothered my eye that much at all, because I think what the artists and the colorists were doing were probably, making sure they were spotlighting what they wanted to in those panels. Mm-hmm. And plus, with all that to be done, they probably had a deadline they had to get to. So it's like, hey, if you can draw them detailed nice, we'll just kind of color them in, and people can pick to as you want. And any good kid, what they would normally do is go ahead and take their crayons out or their markers and go back in and color that in personally for what they wanted to do. So, I would do that with my comics just to make sure I could feel like I was a part of it.
I could just hear people shrieking.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I was about to say, if you did that, I was like, that's something that I could see as a kid maybe doing. Like me as an adult, like, no.
Yeah. No. Well, you probably could. You could see a kid. You've gotten stuff where they're, old back issues that have somewhat of the address filled out, or even like when they had the ads and you could color them in and things like that. So that makes it kind of timely and, it worn in that somebody was actually loving that comic book for what it is. Mm-hmm. But man, just the action in this.
Oh yeah,
man, I was unprepared for it. And, the cover shows you kind of what's happening, but I didn't think it was really going to happen.
Right. And it was, before we even got to the conflict between the Autobots and the Decepticons, which was plenty of conflict, there was also conflict with Autobots versus Autobots, of where it's like, man, some of this is contentious. Like, it was about a year ago or so that Goldbug and Blaster both decided, we don't like this this Grimlock thing. I think we're going to strike out on our own. And so finally, Goldbug has to come back face to face with that, and he was not too excited about it at all.
Right.
So that's one conflict. One more conflict would be that you had Grimlock, who was just completely off the rails. It was like, oh, why should I go back and protect these dumb humans? And then Fort Max is like, well, the guy who's controlling this robot's a human. And then Grimlock's like, what?
You gotta be cray-cray. Only I'm that cray-cray.
So that was conflict. And then Grimlock had his own insecurities. Like, there can't be another Autobot faction. I'm the Autobot leader. Me. I have not gotten to Maggie yet. Maggie, I could talk for a while because this was a great book. But what do you have to say about it?
I think just the first thing I want to share is this is the first time that I read through the issue, and then when I was done, I immediately went back to the first page and read it through again. And actually, the second time reading through, it was smoother. It was like my eyes already kind of knew where to go, and I caught things that I hadn't caught the first time through it, and I was like, I should do this every time. Why didn't I do this all the time? But yeah, this is the first time that I finished, and I was like, that was a really cool issue. There was so much going on. So much information and a lot of really good action that I wanted to make sure that I caught as much of it as I could. So I went back and I read it twice.
So give me something that stuck out to you, especially upon reading it the second time. What was something that you picked up?
Well, in one case, a literal word bubble that I had missed. So that was helpful because I hadn't seen it. I was too busy focusing on the art. Something that really stood out the second time I read through it. It was more just like I was able to follow the dialogue a lot more easily. And I had a better handle on who was already in the book, which was helpful because there are so many characters that the overall experience of reading it the second time through was much more pleasant. And I got a lot more out of it, and I really enjoyed it.
Gotcha. Round two. John, you're up.
Isn't it a little odd that the Autobots still have this law on the books? It's like, you hear about our blue laws, and it's just like, oh, you need a permit to take a bath in Boston because they never took that law. And it's like, hey, those wacky Transformers, those Autobots forgot to take their duel to the death for leadership rule off the book. So it just seems that would have been the kind of rule, especially with a war going on and they're the peace-loving Autobots, that it's like they wouldn't want to have a situation in which the loser would be dead and you wouldn't have that warrior anymore.
Well, it's possible that they just, over 4 million years of war, that it just kind of got lost in the shuffle.
I'm pretty sure that it wasn't a priority.
Right. What I liked about the rule is it seems like it would be something that GRIMLOCK and the Dinobots absolutely would remember was a rule.
Yeah, that's true.
And because they were the only ones that were truly happy about this event going on. Fort Max didn't really want to get into the fight. And then even Goldbug realized that Fort Max was not going to be in good shape because he had just gotten a missile shot through his freaking chest cavity, and still hadn't recovered from that. So a lot of action centered around something that doesn't seem to be Autobot, but very much so seems to be Dinobot, and something that they would want to continue as a tradition. So I found that very interesting.
This issue fulfills a lot of things that have been going on for a lot of months.
I like the callbacks. And this is a great time in comic book history where editors would go in and put their editor note. See, issue number 36, see issue number 28, see issue number 34. I like that just in one page alone, you have 3 references on content page 9 of what things were and what was happening. When we do see Blaster again and him surrendering with the kids and all those references, the culmination, it was exciting to see, and it made me remind me, oh yeah, that's when that happened. Oh, I mean, it's 28, wow, 41 now, boy, that was a long time ago, but it didn't really feel like it for me.
It's been building up to a narrative about a crisis of leadership. It's spent a lot of time setting up Blaster as the guy, and then it spent enough time setting up Fortress Maximus as an option. But then they show up here, and then the answer is, no, none of us are good enough. We need Optimus Prime back, which, we can all agree with. But it could be something I'd love to ask Bob. It's like, at what point did they know that he was going to be bringing Optimus Prime back to the comic? Because I wonder if he was planning initially, without knowing that he was just going to have Blaster, be the leader, that he was going to set up a conflict between the two, and then Blaster'd be the leader for a while. Yeah, because I have no problems with how it goes, especially because, hey, spoiler alert, we get Prime back next issue. It tells us that at the end of this, so it's not much of a spoiler. But I think it would have been interesting in the alternate universe to see how Blaster would have led the team for a little while.
I definitely agree with that. I think Blaster at least got a little bit of redemption. Like, you know, if I personally were to rate like the level of potential leaders, Blaster, like I could interchange. Blaster could be number one some days. Fort Max could be number one some days because he adds some smarts. Grimlock would be dead last.
Hey, even Prowl here, who used to be the number 2 guy, shows up. He's the only guy who tries to take command when the Decepticons arrive, and everything just collapses completely. So maybe they do need Optimus Prime. The Grimlock seems to have gotten them into such a state that they've completely forgotten what to do when Decepticons attack. They're so busy fighting amongst themselves that they've forget who their enemies are. It's a great message and metaphor thrown onto the page. If I mentioned I like this issue,
you did. And Maggie, what do you think? Like, so like this book was in part about leadership, and like Fortress Maximus was the one that said, "Hey, like I am going to send my ship, and we are going to get Optimus Prime back." Like, do you think that was necessary? Do you think that one of the other 3 Autobots were good enough to lead the team long term?
I think so. I don't have any problem whatsoever with the plot to go and get Optimus a body from Nebulos instead of Cybertron for some reason. But I also don't see why Blaster or Fort Max couldn't be a leader. They both have leadership qualities. So it seems more like just like a plot decision rather than something that I fully agree with, because I could see it going a number of different ways and being legitimate and interesting and entertaining in all manner of ways.
Yeah. Pat, what do you think?
Kind of agree with that it, you know, either one of them could be, except for, you know, Grimlock, but obviously not. But
he's just too unstable.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's like the way out there. But then you have with Blaster, I think he's a little hothead, you know. Obviously he gets a little bit mad, so he is unable to kind of control his attitudes, where he's like, well, okay, well, just let me at him then. You don't want to be, he even tells Goldbug, you don't want to be around me. I'm gonna, you know, I'll take him out and do whatever. So it's like, you know, you got to have a level head on yourself on that. And Fortress Maximus, I don't think he's smart, but I think with the headmaster in him, you got that angle that kind of takes away some of the smartness. You have you know, it's not the full Fort Maximus that it was before. You have this taintedness of human in him now. And where all humans are born to make mistakes, where nobody's perfect.
John, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh, even with that, because now I'm like debating whether or not the combined Spike Cerebros Fort Max is like superior or inferior to like OG, and that's its own thing. But that aside, I think Pat's right. There is that aspect. A lot of the the regular Earth Autobots might have a bit of a problem taking orders from a human. The Nebulos ones had time to get used to the idea.
Yeah.
And now, had this been Buster again, if again that was the original plan, and this was Buster, then that actually would have made that even better, because to have Buster as Fort Max looking around at this fight and realizing how everything had gone and going, all right, no, none of these people can leave. We need Optimus Prime. And sending it off, because it is a little weird that Spike Witwicky, who doesn't know Optimus Prime from Gears, takes Bumblebee at his word. Bumblebee, who he's just met and has only been a robot again for like a few minutes, you know, before he ran off and did his thing. That he takes him at his word and decides that, yes, I guess he must be as good as he says. Let's go. It still works, and whatever they want to do. I mean, Optimus Prime was coming back, and if the option is either we bring back Optimus Prime or we don't bring back Optimus Prime, I know what everyone's going to want. The cartoon had brought him back a long time before this. Literally 2 months later, I think, according to that one.
Yeah, I saw that. And it felt like years that they kept Optimus Prime dead.
Not as long as this felt.
I want to add one more person to the mix, and that'd be Goldbug. They never mentioned him as a leader, but he did an excellent job convincing Blaster to do the right thing and stand up to Grimlock, because Blaster was ticked off that he had been chained up and pretty much just left to sit there and rot and suffer. And he's like, screw all these people. And Buster's like, well, not only like do you still have a chance to lead us and be a leader, but screw Grimlock, right?
Pretty good.
That's all he had to say, right?
Yeah, aren't you mad? Aren't you mad? Don't you want to fight him? And Blaster was like, oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's true. I really want
I do want to fight him. I thought that was an excellent swerve to where Fort Max fighting Grimlock. Okay, that would have been one thing, but like to take Blaster and continue his arc and allow him to have an opportunity to face off against Grimlock, the person who he hated and had to abandon, that was primo storytelling, I think. We've gone 2 rounds. Everyone's gotten their say, but there's a lot more we can talk about on this book. What I'll do is at least go around and ask everybody, is there anything, like any particular topic that they want to add or discuss? I'll start with Pat. Pat, is there anything else that you had in your notes that you want to talk about?
I think we kind of went over it all just about. The only other thing, the other side to look at was the Decepticon side, what was going on there. I'm like, Rat-Bat, how can you let Buster just kind of hang out with everybody?
I love that.
You know, and then he starts putting the team, yeah, you go, Autobots. Looks like the Decepticons are getting their butt whooped now. What do you think about that, Rat-Bat? Rat-Bat could have just swung a wing or a leg and just knocked him off of the plate. Come on.
Squished him like a bug.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the things I noticed on my second reread, going back to Delvin's question. Now I have an answer for it. Was in that scene with Rat-Bat, he picks him up and then drops him in the background, and you can see him fall right on his butt. I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, behind Soundwave when he's just kind of lounging in the chair. I love that.
He's being sassy, and Rat-Bat's like, no, don't be sassy.
But he doesn't do it again when they're watching the battle. It's like, come on, just knock him again. You know, put him in his place.
He did. Like Buster was getting a little bit lippy, being we gotta say he's a prisoner of war, basically, because that's what he is. But at least he hasn't gone Stockholm syndrome. He knows exactly which side it is that he's rooting for, and he's rooting for the good guys. He's rooting for the Autobots for sure. It's worth mentioning at least, and I might mention this. I don't know more than MECI, less than MECI. You got to admit, Rat-Bat had a fantastic plan here. It's like, look, we got all the Autobots here, and they don't know we're coming. So, want to do some Decepticon stuff? and they
got
did.
This brand new flying island with a tentacle.
Yep, had the flying island, had a boatload of the Decepticons ready to attack, and they did something that's very that's worth mentioning at least. If you noticed, they took advantage of a completely empty ark, carved it open, and they got back a lot of Decepticon brethren that, if you remember, a lot of those were lost back in issue 19. One of the names that they highlighted was Starscream.
Yeah.
Well, there he is. Hook's picking him right up and putting him into Long Haul's thing there. Also Frenzy.
I gotta say, I felt like that was kind of a missed opportunity. They could have just labeled the boxes like Decepticon Prisoner number 1, Decepticon Prisoner number 2, and then as readers, you wouldn't have known which Decepticons were going to be coming back, and it could have been more of a surprise.
Oh, they're getting all of them.
Yeah, see, but I didn't know that.
Well,
it
that
could
would have been
like,
kind of.
when everything starts blowing up and Rat-Bat makes everyone come back to the island ship that's exploding. Maybe they didn't get everybody because they ran out of time. I'm just saying.
That's true, but that's on Ratchet. You know, he's that organized. He's got to write the names. You know, Inhuman.
So
you know, he's like, okay, this one.
Yeah.
And they did hint at least that another editor's note, defeated and captured by the Autobots in Transformers 19. So if somebody wanted to go look, they could at least look. And
that's a good callback.
It was a great callback. It was a great callback for sure. John and or Maggie, do y'all have anything else burning that you wish to discuss?
Yes. I just wanted to really quickly highlight my favorite part of the book, which was the fight between Blaster and Grimlock, because it starts with Goldbug doing a not so very heroic kind of thing and telling Blaster, don't do it for the Autobots, do it for yourself, get revenge on Grimlock. And Blaster's like, yeah, all right. But then the fight throughout the entire thing, Grimlock is constantly mispronouncing Fort Max's name hilariously.
I don't know why that's so funny.
I
it
loved
shouldn't
it
be
every single time.
Fruit Loop multiplex.
And then it ends with Okie dokie Blaster. And I just think that's the whole arc that Grimlock goes through and the lesson that he learns in that fight. And then it ends with Okie dokie Blaster. I just friggin' loved it.
That's kind of funny. I was going to mention that too in the midst. And this fight is amazing. It's everything you want from a two good guys fight and have to team up at the end to beat the bad guys, because man, the power of friendship charges these two up so that the presence of two new Autobots are able to turn the tide, because Grimlock kills all of the Stunticons. He just kills them. Menasor is dead now. But he's just killing these things. But
Menasor is dead now.
Yeah, but before that, everybody has wanted to see Blaster stick it to Grimlock for months, and they delivered in a pretty great way.
Yeah.
I mean, with an explanation that what he was shooting was his Electro Scrambler.
Every time he uses it, he has to say its name.
I think it's part of the...
Maybe it's got a command word.
It reminded me of Transformers in the movie in a way. In that, in the beginning of Transformers the movie, Grimlock and the rest of the Dinobots, take on Devastator and fight him toe to toe. And then about halfway through, Grimlock, apparently he must have got hit on the head really, really hard during that one, because after that, he is just even more of a moron than he's ever been, and everything is all comic relief. And that's where he stayed. He was never really depicted as a huge threat anymore. He was just the goofy person. That has happened here. It's just suddenly during the midst of the fight, he decides, oh, okay, me comic relief now. And I love their team up and how they're able to take that out with the Electro Scrambler can't get through, but Grimlock's apparently magical, awesome sword can. We've never seen it be this badass before, but here it is.
It's a Negro sword, I believe it's called.
Negro sword. Is that how it's pronounced?
I thought it was Energo.
Yeah, I know. I've heard a Negro before, but never made the connection between that word and the word that I always pronounced as Energo my entire life until today.
Yeah, it might be Energo. I don't know.
Right.
So, you know what? Maybe Herbert Fung. He will know. He would know. Either way, cool energy sword. And yes, I did enjoy that fight too. Pat, if you wanted to talk about the fight too.
I agree with you guys too. It was a good fight to see that all happening. And then just to see the buddy turn around. Hey, we're buddies now. Let's go.
We're going to see a few more degrees of Grimlock over the course of Transformers Chronicles. Grimlock's story is far from over. And I like that they he sort of realized that, okay, I have not been a good leader. Like, I'm powerful, but I've not been a good leader at all. And I thought Blaster, who's kind of a hothead, kind of look, we both like destroying Decepticons more than we like destroying each other. Let's get back to what we're good at. I appreciated that resolution. Who was the best? Who was the best that they were going to be in issue 41? We do that in a segment called The Touch, where we spotlight who was the best in the book, be it Autobot, Decepticon, or human. Maggie.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Well, good, because I think we had the same one, so I can pick a different one.
Who had the touch to you, Maggie?
So you see, there's a lot of options in this one. There's a lot of very good options for the touch. Who would I give the touch to? I kind of want to give it to Ratbat. A little part of me wants to give it to Ratbat. Only purely because throughout that battle, his thing is this is going to go down as a great day in the annals of Decepticon fuel accounting, which was so true to his character that I burst out laughing the first time I read it. I thought that was great. And he's foiled in the end, obviously, and his flying squid-shaped island spaceship is blowing up around him and falling down around his ears. And he just does the role of like the bad guy who's super confident in his plan, and then it all completely goes pear-shaped, and he didn't see it coming even a little tiny bit. It was so good.
He's learning what it's like to be a Decepticon leader now.
Yeah.
You know, you wanted to be in charge. This is what happens all the time.
So it's a little bit of an oddball choice, I'll admit it. But just because there are so many good choices for the touch, there is a lot of good character moments in the book. That one with Ratbat was one I hadn't mentioned before, so I'll go with Ratbat.
Maggie, I'm with you. I think Ratbat he stood out the most. I love that with all of the vast majority of the robots that we know being right about Earth orbit, that like they were all together and they're like, wait a minute, we got an opportunity to take out all of our enemies right here in one fell swoop. We can ambush them. Let's go. Let's do it. Yeah. I applaud that. I thought that was excellent strategy, excellent action. Like that first ambush took out a quarter of the Autobots. They even mentioned that. So yeah, it was so efficient. So I think Ratbat lived up to his purpose. Pat, who had the touch to you?
I think Ratbat's a good choice as well too, but I'll go with combining the three would-be leaders, Grimlock, Fort Max, and Blaster, all at the end. Just coming up and going, you know what? That was the right choice to do. We all agree we're not worthy. We need Prime back.
And in their own way, they all had actions that contributed to the success at the end of the day for the Autobots too. John, who had the touch to you?
I am going to give it to Goldbug, actually.
Okay.
Just for managing to carry around that floppy disk between his giant robotic fingers for the entire issue without it getting cracked or destroyed at any capacity. I don't know if he realized how fragile the thing was.
Let's hope he does.
Let's hope so he does.
Otherwise, it's going to be a very short issue number 42.
That and other things, as Delvin indicated earlier, he also was instrumental in yeah, but it's Grimlock. You've been wanting to punch that guy. That's a good point, Goldbug.
I do want to punch him.
And to Delvin's point earlier, when he was talking about the leadership qualities of Bumblebee Goldbug, if anyone's interested in that, I would direct you over to the sister show, The Rod Pod, where it deals with a united Autobots and Decepticons with Bumblebee trying to lead them. Mild spoiler alert, it doesn't go very well for the poor bug. But so check that out wherever you found this podcast. You'll find that one too by looking a little bit harder.
Please do that. And that's not a segue, by the way, but I'm terribly using it anyway. And if we've talked about the touch, someone had to be out of touch, not the Rod Pod. We talked about the character that was the worst in the book and should get their name mispronounced 713 times. In the segment called Less Than Meets the Eye, I'll go first. Why not? Ooh, Less Than Meets the Eye in the book?
Right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone disappointed. Like, not over the top disappointed to where I was just like, ooh, no, that was just terrible. I thought Ratbat did a fantastic job. I thought all the Decepticons were integral in their part. Like, Grimlock redeemed himself in the book. I actually don't have a choice for Less Than Meets the Eye. Not like I can't think of a great one. But I can pass it around and see what you all think. Pat, what do you think?
I see what you're going to, so I'm just going to choose Buster for being Less Than Meets the Eye, just because, just the stupidity of going,
Good point.
Just being stupid. It's like, you're next to Ratbat. He's going to do something to you. But then, you could also give it to Ratbat on the other opposite end of that to go, why didn't you hit him and just knock him off? Tell him to shut up.
Yeah, I mean, Grimlock had no problem doing that with Ratchet, which was also hilarious. Ratchet was like, is that Optimus Prime? He's here. Shut up, Ratchet. Like, dang, Ratchet got abused. Anyway, less than meets the eye, John.
Oh, let's see. Since you didn't pick one, I'll pick two.
Sure.
All right. First of all, I got to go with my guy Omega Supreme, who yet again, in a situation in which his function applies, he kind of just stands there and narrates what's happening to other Autobots. Jetfire, no.
I actually agree.
I wish I could do something, but no.
I agree with that because when I saw Omega Supreme, I'm like, oh, he does exist. Like, where have you been, you big useless SOB?
Hey, he's like, but my less than meets the eye for reasons which we will all see now that we think about it, is actually going to be Ratbat. Not because he failed his mission. He actually succeeded at a giant part of his mission, which was to rescue the other Decepticons. But the thing is, what I'm giving it to him is for paying much more attention to fuel audit situations than personnel files or maybe employee performance reports, because otherwise they wouldn't have picked Starscream so front and center to go. If you have the opportunity to not rescue Starscream,
that's hilarious.
You should probably not rescue Starscream because, he's a jet, he's fast, but he's not anywhere near the only jet anymore. You got like 8 jets. I mean, one of them turns into a tank also. So you don't even need him. And he's going to betray you at some point. This is not, this is either a prediction or a spoiler alert, but in any case, he is going to betray you. Just don't let Starscream into your world now that you're on top of things. So, Ratbat, it's for you. You had a pretty good day, but there's something you don't know.
John, I'm sure that Starscream coming back is not going to have any consequences whatsoever.
Megatron has fallen! I, Starscream, am now your leader! Decepticons, follow me!
Maggie, who is less than meets the eye to you?
You know, I kind of think I might follow in your footsteps, Delvin, because that was the one that I was really struggling with. Much like there's a lot of really good options for the touch, I was like, I couldn't really think of anyone that stood out for less than meets the eye, because everyone has either like an arc or they get something to do, except for Omega Supreme. So it was really hard to pick anybody out. I felt like who really did disappoint me. There wasn't even a moment when I was reading it and thought that was stupid. Like I didn't even get one of those. So I don't have a choice for less than meets the eye this time.
Personally, I think that's fair. I jokingly had thought of Omega Supreme and had forgotten about it. And then when John said, I was like, oh, yeah, it's always Omega Supreme. You big galoot. How come you don't do more? Anyway. Oh, nice. There you go. John, listening audience, is showing a toy of Starscream replete with his crown that he was given. Or he gave to himself during Transformers.
He's happy to be back. He's
happy to be back, and again, I'm sure he's not going to be getting into any trouble anytime within the next 8 or 9 issues. But for now, we must rate Transformers 41 1 to 10. Y'all know how we do. I don't know who wants to go first. I'm always picking. Does anyone want to volunteer to tell me what they want to rate Transformers 41? Does anyone want to volunteer? Any hand?
Well, at the risk of fulfilling that one guy's prophecy, who was pointing out that we apparently overrate things, I'm going to give this one a 10. But even with my criticisms of the art, that was just a rant about the art. This one, as I think we've discussed here, it was the perfect culmination of a lot of plot arcs, and it did it in a satisfactory way. And also, it sets up very nicely what's going to happen next. Plus, it leaves us in a situation where we're not really sure what's going to happen. I mean, it's culminated a bunch of story arcs and set us off into the next one in a great way, probably better than any issue so far has. So this is a 10.
Maggie, what would you rate it?
Oh, I'm definitely going to give the issue a 10. Reading it felt like a finale almost. Like, it was interesting, it was exciting the whole way through. There were great character moments, there was humor, there was action, there was great art with minor exception. Like, it was all around the best. Like, I think my favorite one, aside from Car Wash of Doom, that we have read so far. I liked Car Wash of Doom.
Oh, I loved it. But we must shock the entire world with that because it's
and also it's Car Wash of Doom. Pat, what would you rate Transformers 41?
Well, when I was reading this, I was turning the page. As everybody else mentioned too, the character development in here, the callbacks, the fulfilling what has been told before or foreseen before, the action, Grimlock, the comedy in here was just funny too. Like Maggie said, that was one, him calling Fort Max just a couple different names and not getting it right was funny. I had to go back and reread. Did he just call him a different? It was just all in all a great book. The art as well was nice as well too. So if I was enjoying myself reading it, then I have to give it a high score and give it a 10. I'm rating it on the joy that I have in reading it. I really enjoyed this one.
I enjoyed it too, to where I had forgotten how much was put in this book. And I would hope that out of the books that Bob Budiansky penned as an author, that he's proud of this one. He should be. This was, in the synopses that I've written leading up to this, I just talked about, I was like, are we going to talk about this now? I was like, nope, there's still more buildup. Are we talking about it now? Nope, there's still more buildup. And here's the delivery. And it delivered on all counts, but it left a great cliffhanger of where they're saying Optimus Prime is coming back. He nailed it. He absolutely, went up in the air, tried to do this triple tuck twist thing, and he landed and he nailed the doggone dismount.
It would have been a great issue even with less, because it already was hyped up to be the battle between Grimlock and Blaster. However they would have done that, it would have been worth the read most likely. But Bob decides, yeah, anybody could do that. I think I'll just have Jose draw every freaking toy that we got in the room here. Just props to Jose again. They are really, really gelling as a team by this point and telling the story between the writing and the art. And I like it. Whatever happens from this point on, there will always be this one. And I as well as you, I expect he is a little proud of this. If he isn't, I'm going to maybe tell him he should be proud.
He should be. He should take a bow on this one. I got to give it back to you, John, because you're about to talk about Transformers Spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where John discusses a particular Transformer, which was featured in today's issue. All yours, John.
The thing that was terrible is I didn't have very many to choose from. I decided to pick this guy because I actually don't get very many opportunities to talk about him in this series. And we were talking about leaders a little bit before, so no leadership discussion is complete without talking about Hot Rod / Rodimus Prime, who appears on a couple of pages in this issue in his purple colored in this series glory. All right, here's what, if you bought the original Hot Rod toy from 1986, here's what the back would say. His function is Cavalier. He is an Autobot, of course. His motto is, my actions speak louder than words. Hot Rod is an all-American boy Autobot. That's what it says. All-American boy, everyone. He is a typical adolescent who dreams of being heroic and important. He tends to not follow rules too closely. Although he means well, Hot Rod's impulsive actions often get him into trouble. He carries 2 photon lasers that temporarily electromagnetize an enemy robot's microcircuits. His speed is 120 miles per hour. His range is 4 miles. He can be hot-headed, but he's always a well-meaning, admirable lad and a brave and honorable fighter. Here is his stats with a giant caveat, which will be explained almost immediately. His strength is 10, his intelligence is 10, his speed is 9, his endurance is 10, his rank is 10, his courage is 7, his firepower is 10, and his skill is 10. Now, some of you might be a bit confused by this, and I think so was Hasbro. But I'm going to just read the back of if you would have happened to have gotten Rodimus Prime as a toy at one point. Experience is the benchmark of maturity. A vanguard for Autobot ranks, possesses acute military prowess, speaks with the savvy of seasoned veteran for some reason. Expert tactician with exceptional maneuverability in battle, can be hot-headed at times, has a tendency to act first, ask questions later. In robot mode, he carries a photon eliminator that shoots high-voltage electricity, range 500 miles, speed 200 miles. Sole purpose is to protect all life. His only weakness is his compassion for other living creatures. His strength is a 10, his intelligence is a 10, his speed is a 9, his endurance is a 10, his rank is a 10, his courage is a 10, firepower is 10, his skill is a 10. You might have noticed something similar about those two things. The only difference is Hot Rod's courage goes up from what it was to a 10. Everybody's pretty sure that they accidentally printed Rodimus stats onto Hot Rod, or it's possible that they gave him those stats just to make everybody wonder what was up. But in any case, in 1987, as part when they reprinted it or redid him as part of the Target Master line, his stats for that toy, his strength was 6, his intelligence is 6, his speed is 6, his endurance is 8. His rank is 5, his courage is 10, his firepower is 7, and his skill is 6. The only problem with that is that even though his speed is listed as noticeably smaller as both cases, but his speed listing on his card is listed as 30 miles per hour, which is a good 100 miles an hour more than what his other one. So what we can determine from this is that these stats are, from this point on, meaningless. So there may be some months where I don't bother to actually come up with the tech spec, strength 1 to 10 and all of this. But as far as these characters go, everybody knows from Rodimus Prime, or Hot Rod Rodimus Prime, in terms of the movie. We don't like, a lot of people don't like him. They blame Hot Rod for Optimus dying. All of that is you. I understand people /Delvin. The thing is, with Optimus, and especially if you watch the 3rd season of the cartoon, which does not hold up as well as I wish it had, but there are a few notable exceptions where they actually put some work into usually those were 2-part stories. In those alone, you actually get to see a progression of Rodimus Prime from leader who realizes that there's no way in hell he's going to match up to the guy who came previously, to guy who realizes, but that's okay. Just in time for Optimus to come back. So, whatever. If you love or hate Hot Rod Rodimus Prime, the IDW Phase 2 books are for you, in which he leads a troop of Autobots through space, and the guy is about a narcissistic imbecile half the time, who actually, despite that, manages to go through his own character arc and become a actual leader of bots. Anyway, the Hot Rod toy was really cool, way cooler than the Rodimus toy. Had some missiles. The car is slick. There are a ton of remakes of Hot Rod, including some on the stands right now. Go get one if you want one. That's Hot Rod, folks.
And that is time for a commercial break.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
You are receiving a transmission from the Rod Pod. Upload pending.
Stand by for soundtrack transfer.
I am Maggie.
And I am John.
And we are trapped, hurtling through space in a ship shaped like Rodimus's head.
The ship, for reasons we haven't been able to determine, contains the entire run of the IDW Transformers Phase 2 comic. which chronicle the events following the end of the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. So we figure we may as well read them all in order and report our findings to you. Stand by. Stand by.
Upload complete. Now.
The Rod Pod. Look for us at marriedwcomics.libsyn.com, at iTunes, at Stitcher, or wherever good podcasts can be found.
So, till all are one.
Till all are one.
We now return to the Transformers.
And that is the show, everyone. Please come back and join us for next episode where we discuss Transformers issue 42, where we see the return of Optimus Prime. Hell yes.
Yeah.
If you'd like to hear more from us, the Longbox Crusade is in a lot of places: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, YouTube. Search Longbox Crusade. You will find us forthwith. We do a lot of cool stuff on the YouTube channel. We would appreciate your like and your subscription. There's a voicemail as well, 707-532-5269, 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone.
Excellent. In stereo. And you can also email us at contact@longboxcrusade.com. John and Maggie, why don't you tell us about your podcast and where, if anywhere, you can be found on the internet?
We do MWC Podcast, which stands for all sorts of creative things that Pat comes up with. Married watching cartoons, married with comics, married with comfort TV is a new one. We also do the Rod Pod in terms of Transformers content. We haven't figured out a way to MWC that yet, despite Shag wanting to say Megatron wants Cybertron, but that just doesn't fit the aesthetic. Anyway, we do that. Maggie and I do that with John M. Wilson. We cover the IDW Phase 2 books in order. I bring this up because we're actually going to be starting recording and get some of that content out. So be excited, folks. You can find us on Facebook if you look up MWC Podcasts or the Married with Comics Podcast. If you want to get a hold of us directly, we're at marriedwcomics@gmail.com.
Married watching Cybertron is right there.
Yeah, I know.
It's right there.
So is Married with Cupcakes.
I know. That's what we were thinking of calling it.
Now I want a cupcake. And so before you get me hungry, Pat, could you please tell us where you can be found?
Well, Delvin, I'm glad you asked. I can be found on the Twitter at Christatos01. Delvin, where can you be found?
I can be found on Twitter, DEE_RAY1977. Instagram, if you care to follow me there, Delvin the Ray. See y'all next time. And remember, freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Till all are one.
Till all are one.
Till all are one. Till all are one.
Till all are one. Till all are